Welcome back, viewers at home. You're still joining us right here on Prime Live, about to have a very interesting conversation. And this is a conversation with Margaret Auerbach. Now, the talented owner of Spellbound Puppets will take us behind the scenes of this enchanting art form. Buckle up for a magical journey into the world of puppet theater. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us, Margaret.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Now, first and foremost, what drew you to all things, puppetry, and what was the moment that had you realize that this is what I want to do as a profession?
Well, I grew up, when I was growing up, my mother encouraged me a lot, took me to puppet shows and magician shows, and I loved going to puppet shows. There's something quite magical about them.
Yeah.
So that's where it started, and then when I was 10 years old, my mother built me a puppet theater, and my two older brothers made a puppet show, created a puppet show. And my mother gave me as a birthday present 4 puppets. And that's kind of where it started, I think. And then as I grew older, I started getting more and more into it. I started doing puppet shows while I was still at school in Standard 7. I think that's about grade 9.
Wow.
And then it started, and I just carried on while I was at school. I was doing puppet shows, a few, for birthday parties and things like that. And then it got more serious. I studied drama, history of drama, and I did a degree with languages, and then I did a teaching diploma. But all the time I was doing puppet shows, and that became more and more important to me.
This is quite interesting, because now I'm thinking, I have to now reminisce to the fact that my first time I had to make a puppet was for arts and culture, and it was the one thing I enjoyed when it comes to other parts that we had to do when it comes to homework and things that we had to do in terms of assignment, because you get so taken away by putting in the eyes and the tongue and whatever that you were creating. And I'm sure this now brings me back to my other question in really understanding the creative process as someone who's doing it on a more professional level rather than doing it for marks. I want to find out from you, if you can just walk us through that process. What is it like from designing to now building, from concept to completion, a puppet, or just a puppet theater in that sense?
Right. Well, the first thing is that you've got to get that feeling of the puppet already on your hand.
Okay.
So that's how, if you're going to use a mouth puppet or a figure puppet, they're two different kinds of puppetry. And we're talking about hand puppets.
Yeah.
There's also shadow puppet theater and rod puppets and marionettes. So there are lots of different genres of puppetry. But I've always liked to work with hand puppets because I feel that they get closer to the audience. They kind of get there quickly, and they don't have to go down the strings into the hearts of the people.
Yeah.
So we start off with that. Hello, how I'm so happy to be here. Oh, and I'm very happy to meet you. So that's the first concept, and then I've got some things here that I can just show you very simply.
Yeah.
You take a sock like this, okay, and you put your hand in like that, and then already you're starting to get a feel of a creature that's starting to be alive, become alive. And then you just have to, it's very simple to make a puppet. You can just tie some cotton, some wool together, like that.
Already it has a pink wig.
Yeah, but any color you can choose. There's so many wonderful colors. And then you cut out some circles. You can use the old 2-cent coins, and so you put that's the basis. Here we go. Then we can put a tongue in, maybe a nice pink one. Okay, here we go. Please don't bite me. Okay, I won't. All right, there you go. So you just cut out your little tongue like this, and you stick it in with glue. All right, and then you get these little Google eyes.
Yeah.
You stick it on like that, tuck, 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 and we've got our little puppet coming. Oh, there we are. There's the other eye. There we go. Oh, this is wonderful. Now I can see the whole world. I'm so happy to meet you, Maimuna. I'm very happy. All right. So that's the basis, very, very simple. Anybody can do it. And yeah, that's a sock puppet. And
Sock puppet just revived my inner child, and my inner child in me is just jumping around.
yeah, so that's just a very simple way. Then you can decorate your puppet as well with a little ribbon, make a bow and put it underneath or in the hair. And you can make a little hat out of egg boxes. They make very nice hats, and you can decorate it. So it's very easy and so much fun.
And how long does it take? Let's say now if you were to create this puppet, does it take like less than 30 minutes, an hour?
Well, you can make a very simple puppet in an hour. Okay. I've got some very basic ones here. Little Red Riding Hood.
Wow.
Let's just see. There she is. So these are very basic puppets that you can make very simply. And then I've got a pussycat here. So these are more figure puppets.
Yeah.
Okay, and also... So those are very simple ones. If you're looking at a more complicated one, that does take longer.
Oh, okay. So now, after giving us a very amazing performance, I want to now find out in terms of like what goes through one's, mindset, headspace before creating or just being in the presence of your audience. Is how do you balance the technical manipulation of the puppet with embodying the actual character? And most importantly, how do you then feel the connection with the puppet? Is it part of an extension of who you are, or it's something that you have to maintain that balance between being in character versus, Margaret?
Well, I think there's a kind of magical thing that happens with puppets. So I hope lots of people are going to start making puppets from tonight, because it's the best thing. I wouldn't change this work for anything. I've been doing it since I was at school, and I really love it. And anybody can do it. So you can... So you've got to put your heart in your hand. And you've got to really, I'll just take this one. This is kind of my very special puppet. My mother made this long ago. And she brought her to the table one day. And she's very shy.
Yeah.
Her name is Schmeezel. Schmeezel, do you want to say hello? No! Come on, Schmeezel, don't be shy. But, I'm shy. I know you're shy, but you don't have to be shy. You can be brave. Okay, I'll try to be brave. Now make your voice a bit stronger. Okay. It's okay. You don't have to be nervous. Okay, I won't be nervous. I'm going to be brave today. I'm saying hello. My name is Schmeezel. So you see, your heart goes right into your hand. And if you've got two puppets, you can have a high voice and a low voice. I'll take, here's Danielle. Hello, Danielle. Hello, Schmeezel. How very nice to meet you. And I'm very happy to meet you too, Danielle. So, that's kind of how it works. But I think one feels it in a way. And,
And with that being said, we understand that, puppetry is something that is quite rooted in so many cultures worldwide. And I think this brings me to asking you that, are there any particular traditions or styles that inspire your work? And if so, what are they, if you can mention for us?
I think my puppetry is very much inspired by the old commedia dell'arte, which were strolling players that used to, this is kind of in my dream really, that used to go in caravans from town to town. They used to set up like gypsy caravans or whatever, and they used to just open a window or door, and the people and that puppet shows would come outside. When I started doing puppet shows, we sometimes used to do them through the window. And then we'd invite the neighbors, and they would come and sit on the outside, and so a window is a puppet theater.
Yeah, wow.
So,
and with that being said, I think just understanding how, puppets or rather puppetry can be used as an educational tool makes me wonder in terms of, how can it be effectively used in teaching children some complex issues. And I believe that this brings me back to understanding that you did a play based on Palestine. And I think most parents are struggling to break that to their kids, to say what exactly is happening in Palestine and why we're so passionate about it and why there's so much emotions around it. to you, what advice or what strategies would you like to share with us in terms of how do you execute that?
Yeah, I've done a lot of education. In fact, much of what I do is educational around specific themes. And because puppetry is a way that you can speak to people in a different way that's not the same as even acting with human actors. Somehow there's something about the way the puppet works.
Okay.
And one is able, I mean, I can feel very, it's a very deep thing, puppetry. And I feel very strongly about the whole Palestine thing. It's absolutely horrific what's happening. And I feel it's almost like a duty to see what is wrong around you. You know, when it was the elections in 1994, the puppets were in the street, and I did a little bit of work with other people on voter education. And so this is a particularly important thing. And I try to do a sort of allegory of a show, where the story is not specifically around what's happening, but it's around somebody who's despotic and who is a tyrant and who is treating all the creatures in the forest badly, or chopping the trees down because he doesn't care. He's just going to do whatever he wants there, and he doesn't care about the people or the creatures that are there. And so for me, that becomes a bit of an allegory. And I just think, in a way, it's a way of getting a really important message across.
Can you give us a small insight in how you would make a play based on Palestine? Because I would like to see it in that essence, if you can, if it's possible.
It's such a difficult subject, because you have to do it in a way that, it's so awful what is going on, that one's got to find a way of getting through to people. So, one of the shows that I've adapted is one where there's I don't have him here, but he's come to the forest, and he says he's going to chop down the forest, and he's going to have a parking space there. What I also do when I'm doing that kind of show is I try to put something for the adults where the children are getting a kind of message about, authoritarianism and tyranny and that kind of thing. The adults can see what's going on in a different way. So I sometimes throw out different words so that the adults are quite clear. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So there, even the children will know what I'm talking about. But so it sort of can go on two levels in a way.
And with that being said, I think you shared a very interesting tip around, being successful or just execute, or being quite successful in portraying certain things when you're doing puppetry, which is having your heart on your sleeves, right? And I think this now makes me wonder more, since you're a well of wisdom. I'd like to ask, are there particular skills or mindsets that you believe are essential for success in this art form?
I think passion is the most important thing. And there's a funny thing. When I do workshops in puppet making at schools with children, when the children have to manipulate the puppet, you can almost immediately see like 3 or 4 children who get it, and sometimes it just speaks to you very deeply, just the same as any other creative thing like art or sculpture or anything, music, that you feel so deeply for it. And I think that's where it comes in. It's just a deep passion for it, and wanting to make it happen.
Now, this has been quite a very delightful conversation. I really enjoyed the show, the performance as well. But just in closing, in terms of what words of advice would you like to share with our viewers at home, just taking in our conversation on all things puppetry and your journey as well as your creative process?
Well, the most important thing is to do it. If you want to do it, it's wonderful. It helps you to read books. It helps you to do a course. It helps you to look at YouTube, AI. All that will help. But the thing that helps you most is to do it. So if you feel that you've been tickled or bitten by puppets, just try it. Get a sock, you can also create something with something you've got. You don't have to go out and buy something expensive. You look at something like maybe a pom-pom you've got or a sock you've got or something, and you start feeling that, and just do it. And that's your best teacher, because you try to create a show, and you see, no, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work in front of a mirror as well. That helps a lot. Or get somebody to watch you and make suggestions. So my main advice to anybody who's interested in puppets is just do it. And necessity is the mother of invention. You will make it happen.
Margaret, thank you so much for joining us tonight and really, making us feel like, 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds once again, because it's always a good feeling. It brings about good memories as well. But thank you so much for joining us tonight.
That's a pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
Viewers at home, that was my guest, Margaret, who is the founder, or rather the talented owner of Spellbound Puppets, and she was sharing with us her journey. Make sure you do check her out. But for now, we're going to head over to an ad break. We'll see you just shortly.